Thank you very much, and thanks for coming at this early hour to a world full of Amazons. Exciting world, really. So I'll talk about customer experience as an engine for growth. I left out the marketing. But what I really want to talk about is the subline which is on top here, so really everything is upside down. And that is why we in the media industry need to reinvent ourselves in order to compete in this world. Now, as you all know, our market is undergoing a radical change. And maybe you get the idea of this picture. Is the moment where the dinosaurs are extinct and other species have survived. And somehow I think this is, to some respect, parallel to what we are at the moment. Now, I'll show you a bit of where this change manifests itself, and you probably know this. I mean, this is a quite famous graph from the World Economic Forum, the largest companies by market capitalization 2006 and 2016, and obviously you're aware that by now we have 5 companies which are digital companies which have not been in there, or 4 have not been in there 10 years earlier. Only Microsoft prevailed. Plus also the entire volume is much bigger. So the biggest companies now are these digital companies that we are competing against. A graph you might not know because it's quite recent. It's from a Boston Consulting report on TMT from February 2018. This is comparing the value creation in terms of TSR of media companies. And again there, we have 4 standing out. Those are the FAANG companies, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, and Netflix, creating more than the remaining 70 media companies in terms of market value. That also shows how the world is changing. The most frightening, really, though, is customer experience and the change in customer behavior. Those apps that we all are so glad and happy to use, like Spotify for John, for example, they change user behavior. They change user expectations. Once you have used such a service, you're not likely to go back to a maybe more tedious other service. And there's tons of examples. So think of Google Maps versus your own car manufacturer's SatNav. I mean, how tedious can you be to enter your where you want to go? Think of WhatsApp versus SMS, and the graph on the right-hand side shows the usage and revenues of those two. Think of WhatsApp telephony versus classical telephony. So user experience is better, and it changes the expectations. It changes what we expect from a service. And then also coming to media, think of Netflix binge-watching features compared to your own receivers features. Think of an Amazon Fire TV box and how simple to use that is versus our classical receivers. And I know there are exceptions, obviously, and we've heard some of them yesterday, for example. But as an industry as a whole, we need to be honest to ourselves and really see where we are standing. Now, why are those companies so successful in terms of customer experience? Well, you could think of, obviously, tools and technology and IP. You probably get the picture. It is not that. It is their mindset and their way of working. And this way of working is where we need to evolve to. And we've heard that expression a couple of times also yesterday. That way of working and that mindset is an agile mindset. And I'm not talking about, you have to use Scrum or you have to use Kanban. It's really a question of mindset. How do I deal with my people? How do I deal with the employees? How much power am I ready to shift to the production teams, etc.? Now, I don't want to go into, let's say, agile details. This shouldn't be an agile course. But there's 3 pillars, 3 principles, which are really, really the essence of it. The first, obviously, is the customer. An agile team, an agile company is focused around the customer. The customer is an integral part of the production, of project teams, of product development, as opposed to the bureaucratic organizations that, not all, but many of us are still in, where the customer is not even part of that idea. Second is the team size. There's this 2-pizza approach. So you should be able to feed your project team with 2 pizzas. It's a small team, it's autonomous, it's cross-functional. They are the ones to decide. They do small iterations and they talk to each other. And the last one is the network, which means you go out of your silo, you talk to each other, you share information. It's not information or competence which is your own, but it's the integral part is sharing it, which obviously then produces much more interaction. And how dramatic the change is that many of our organizations need to go through, well, you can get an idea of that if you look at 1 old industry versus 4, the Agile network. And the changes that need to happen within the organizations are regarding how I understand leadership, how I understand budget processes, how I work with my system, etc. So there's a lot that needs to be adapted and changed. It is not an easy change. It is not something that can be outsourced to the project teams. Now, if you have achieved that, and John, actually, I'm glad you mentioned Spotify in the introduction. This is when you can reach stunning customer experience. And this is an example of that. It doesn't always have to be the user interface. Spotify's Discover Weekly playlist is a playlist that Spotify customers get presented once a week based on data, based on their usage behavior. It is a list of songs that you will like, most likely, taken from what you've heard before, but songs you don't know yet. So it is really something to discover new music, which obviously is something which brings you very deep into the service. I mean, once you've experienced this once or twice or 3 times and it works, you will never want to give up that service. And talking about Spotify, in case you don't know that, I mean, many know this video already. The Spotify engineering culture is a very nice and educational and very entertaining video produced by, I think, the CTO of Spotify at the time, about their transition from a rather classical company to an agile company working in squads and teams, etc., and what had to happen within their organization. It's a 10-minute video. It's really worth viewing. So, coming back to my initial statement about the dinosaurs not being extinct, I hope that we can use our intelligence to adapt to this new world, which is really going our way. And I know some of you have seen this citation yesterday already. I think it only underlines the importance of this sentence. Thank you very much.